not every day that you guys get to meet an American legend, so here we are. And because we have such limited time, we want to get to questions.
Yes, let's get at it.
Let's get at it. So we are in a room full of almost 700 students. There's an overflow room that is even beyond the space that we are in. And all of these students probably wish they could be in your position one day.
Yes.
Can you tell me, what were you like when you were a student? How would your parents have described you? I
wasn't much of a student. I'd actually, when you said they want to be me, I want to be them. I want to be a student. I was a bad student. I had a lot of difficulties sitting still. And so it was very tough. I had a very tough time in school.
Were you always a creative person?
I was mostly at BS. I wanted to say the word. I don't know.
We get it.
But mostly, I was very creative with that.
Well, you were certainly creative with the $1,100 that you had to start your business. Famously, Steve was selling shoes out of the trunk of his car.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about what did that $1,100 get you? When you were holding that money and wanting to start your business, how did you spend it?
I probably paid for gas with it, and lunch. I had partners. I remember I had different partners, and finally it didn't work out with anybody because I just had my own vision. And so I struck a deal with some factory owners. So they would pay the majority of the expenses, and I would just do the design and the selling. So I didn't need a lot of capital.
And the design you were doing all by yourself?
No, I had an assistant. I always had somebody to work with.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what was the moment when you were working with your very small team at that time?
Yeah.
What was the moment when you realized, like, this is going to be something?
I think it was 2 weeks ago.
No.
So I had my team, I had a lot of DWIs. So I couldn't drive. And I used to drink when I was younger and stuff like that. And so I hired a driver. That was like my first hire. Someone to help me with the shoes and a driver. That's how I began.
Right. So
because I knew that I couldn't drive. And I couldn't drive anyway.
And so
I wasn't a good driver.
And so a lot of students, in order to finance their education, are often balancing having a job with being a student. I know I did that when I was a student. You worked in shoe stores in Long Island. Can you tell us a little bit about how the experience of having a job on the floor, selling, what did that mean for you?
So that came up a few times today. It's the worst job in the world. Working in a store, being abused by customers, and you learn the most. You learn so much, and it's very difficult. You should get combat pay, but it's amazing. You learn about the area that you want to be in, if it's clothing, shoes, or handbags, or whatever. You know, so there's nothing like it. But it's a miserable job. But it's worth it.
Retail is tough.
Retail is murder.
And I mean,
it's murder. I did it. I still have horrors about it.
Especially in the footwear business, because the amount of stock that you have to have, the pickiness of the customers, having that face-to-face interaction definitely exposes you to exactly what do consumers want, because you can design all day long, but if you're not making something that customers want, what does it mean?
Absolutely correct. And that really teaches you what people want, it's invaluable learning the body language and what they say and what you say.
So there are so many direct-to-consumer brands now that did not exist when you were starting your business.
Yeah.
And this idea of entrepreneurship is like so hot right now.
Yeah.
Every person wants to start their own business. They might have $1,100 or more than that or less.
Yeah.
How do you see, when you see young people starting businesses now, what do you see as sort of the landmines that exist now that did not exist when you were starting your business?
overreaching is one thing.
Oh.
And
Can you describe what you mean by overreaching?
You should set the bar low when you start. So
Guys,
you don't get.
Set it low.
No, I always say that to people. You're not going to do. I'm going to do. $100 million or whatever it is. You should have meaningful goals that are actionable. I really believe that. I do that in a lot of parts of my life. You have to be realistic. You could dream, and it's good to dream. It's so important to dream, but also, if you set unrealistic goals, you tend to get disappointed very quickly, and you don't want to do that. You want to keep fighting. Keep setting goals, hitting them, keep going.
Yeah. So when Steve first started his collection, one of the really impactful marketing moves that you made, and I know that there's a lot of fashion marketing people here at SCAD and people who are interested in marketing in general, but one of the really impactful marketing moves that Steve made was to create an ad campaign sort of like nothing else that had been seen in the marketplace beforehand.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about your advertising philosophy in the early days?
Yes. So I think none of you, you're all too young. It's too bad. It was in the 90s, and we had this, certain kind of photography where we blew the head up, and we called it the Big Head campaign. And if you go online, you could see them, and it sort of struck a chord in the 90s with the whole sort of vibe with music and everything.
And where did you come up with that idea? Because no other brands were doing that look.
Yeah.
So it was truly an innovation?
Yeah, it was a photographer, and it started, there was this series, again, nobody's going to know it, but I'm just going to say it was called Eloise at the Plaza. And I don't know if anybody knows that, but I always liked that.
Yeah.
I always wanted to do a campaign about Eloise. I always liked the whole thing, and it's a very New York thing, and somehow Eloise turned into this big head girl. So it just kind of like morphed into that, and it was great because at the company we took the ball and ran with it. We made our own ads. We did it. We created the scenario and the shoes. It was great.
Yeah, you could really be creative in a way that was like telling your own story, which I think that with a lot to direct-to-consumer brands now, they are truly taking that creative aspect into their own hands.
Yeah.
So in one of the classes that I visited today, one of the students was asking me to ask you about how young designers, and so you had, your $1,100, you had your small collection at that time. When you were trying to work with celebrities, with what we call now influencers, people who would wear your product, and then maybe they would not return it, or they would not take a picture with the item, how would you deal with that kind of difficulty to get those first press hits that when you didn't have a team?
Because we didn't really focus on that in those days. Now, I know today, that's another thing, like the influencer is so amazingly important. I mean, you could sell a lot of shoes if, Winnie Harlow wears your shoe, or one of the Kardashians, that whole thing. And but in the early days, we didn't, it wasn't like a big thing for us. We just kind of like got it out there, and we're more interested in people on the street wearing the shoes. That was a big hit for us. I used to get a big kick out of that. I still do.
And so would you say that right now, social media marketing and influencers are a big part of your strategy?
They are a big part of a strategy, yes.
You don't seem to love it. What do you think?
No, I'm cool with it. You gotta, it is what it is. It's everything right now. Instagram is everything, and it's not the way that I came up, you know what I mean? So, but not that I have to make a disclaimer. I recognize the power of it. I guess it's great, it's not something, I don't love it, but everybody loves it.
Yeah, it
Everybody
is. It's a fraught
You know, people do these, like, they go on vacation and they do like swimming. You know, like, I don't want to see you. I don't want to see that. You know, it's like, you know, like, we're having a great time, you know.
Well, okay, I'll put it to you
I
this
don't
way.
like, you know, that's boring.
Do you think that social media marketing is a bubble that will burst?
No,
or do you,
I don't.
Right.
I don't. I recognize our phones are everything. I recognize all that. And, you know, we're doing all that. So what I can do is just keep focusing on the shoes.
Yeah.
And keep surrounding myself with really smart people, and some of them are here. You know, you should speak to them, not me, after the thing.
Yeah.
They really get it, and so Instagram and Facebook and YouTube have taken the place of Vogue, Redbook.
Traditional advertising, yeah.
You know, and all that. I mean, that's just the way it is. So.
And so, overall, would you say that the money that you would have spent on advertising has now shifted to that social media marketing space?
Yes, for sure.
So for young designers who are
Yes.
thinking about starting their own collection.
Yeah. Well, they know. I'm sure all of you know better than me. You know, I mean, and of course we're moving into the direct consumer. We're getting close to the consumer, and that's super,
on your own channel.
Super important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Very important.
in the early 2000s, you were incarcerated.
I was?
You were.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
You might have forgotten, but, you know.
Did you see the movie?
Wikipedia tells me it happened.
Oh, Wikipedia.
Yeah. Just
Okay.
kidding.
Yeah.
So in the early 2000s, you were incarcerated. At that time, you were running a giant business.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure
Yeah.
had a personal assistant, had a full team of people who are working and making sure that your every need was met.
They were planning my escape.
That too.
Yes.
What was it like to go from being, you know, president, CEO, founder of a company
Yeah.
to going to jail?
So, all right. Well, that's a good question. You know, I had to, you know, I don't mind talking about prison. I don't care. I talk about anything. I don't care. But I was forced to, the secret blessing of all of that, you know, one has to look for the silver lining. And what that is for me is I was forced to build an amazing team because I was going away to prison. And so you can't run a company from prison.
Right.
And so I was forced to do something that I would never have done, you know, which is to get all these great people, like, you gotta run this business. So this is the main reason why Steve Madden has been so successful, because we have so much talent, because usually founders like me, you know, don't let anybody do anything, you know? So I was forced.
That is very true.
My hand was forced to grow in other ways.
That's very,
Yes.
So business-wise, it was not the worst thing that's ever happened to you.
No, it was a blessing business-wise, because like I said, you know, I got all these people, and, you know, and the company exploded when I came back, and, you know, so it was a blessing in that regard. There were many things, you know, that came out of it. You know, it was dreadful. Being in prison was awful. And, but, you know, there were things that came out of it. And I learned how to shower with shower shoes. That was big.
Look at this.
Big thing.
Okay. So,
Okay, whatever.
Yes.
All right. I thought, you know.
We went there.
Yeah.
So there was a recent New York Times article that was really interesting about this concept called the failure resume, which is basically each person sitting down and like literally writing out in bullets the way you would all of your accomplishments, things that you consider to be failures.
Yeah.
What would you say is a failure in your mind that actually gave you something, aside from the incarceration?
Aside
like
from
a business
prison.
decision that
Can you say prison, not incarceration?
Sure, prison.
Yeah, okay.
What was a business decision? And obviously going to prison was not a business decision, but what was a business decision that you look back on and you're like, oh God, I wish I hadn't done that?
We probably expanded too many stores. That might be one. Too many, because now the internet has come in and stores have become, less important. Mistakes are okay if they're good in the sense you say, I did this, I'm not going to do that again. But then if you keep doing it, then it's not so good. But, and also not to dwell on it too much.
Right.
You kind of have to, if you're gonna be successful, you're gonna make a lot of mistakes. You're probably not gonna be successful without making a lot of mistakes.
That is true.
I think it's impossible. So, and then when you get older, right, then you're successful, and then you trying to never make a mistake, and that doesn't work.
True.
Yeah. I saw a sign at Amazon headquarters. I went to see them, to sell them some shoes. And there was a sign in the lobby, and it said, when it comes to ideas, it's quantity, not quality. And I love that. I love that saying, because we tend to I like the idea of throwing a lot of stuff out there, because you never know what's gonna be a good idea, and you can't be afraid.
It's true.
I always say you need to be a little naive to be successful in business.
That's a good point. So, over the years, in order to expand your business, you guys might not know, but Steve has also, aside from running Steve Madden, has also acquired a lot of brands.
Yeah.
And so now, not only does he run a very big business of his own, but he also runs several others. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about the brands you have acquired and why you selected them?
So there were a few different brands. So we bought our competition in shoes, and that was one big thing, which was Dolce Vita. There was a time, you guys, again, this was about 6 years ago, that was one, and we've positioned them in a different place, and we've taken all their shelf space. That's been amazing. And, we bought, one mistake, I should have went away from the comb over earlier.
Oh,
that's
true.
I shaved my head, and I had a comb over for a while, so that was one big mistake. Okay, I just thought of that. I should have done that sooner. Right? I should have done it sooner. Right. Okay. We have Betsy Johnson, who's a great American designer. We were able to buy that we were able to be opportunistic. The company had fallen into hard times. We bought it really well, and we've done really great with that. We bought a cold weather, waterproof company, because the waterproof thing has exploded, and called Blondo. You should look for Blondo, it's great. And what else did we buy? We bought a lot of things.
Superga.
Superga, yes. Superga's like the Keds of Italy.
Italian.
That's been great. We had a few others. I can't remember them all.
So the idea is
what
buy
else
the
did we buy?
competition.
Do we have anything else? I can't think. Huh? Oh yeah. Well, that's sort of inside baseball. But we bought stores and we've done all sorts of stuff. But and we're now looking to expand into clothing.
Ah.
Yeah.
And why that strategy?
We just think that we want to bring other categories that are along the spirit of the shoes.
That makes sense.
Yeah, we have coats now and scarves and all of that.
So
sunglasses too.
I'm sure that a lot of the people here have seen The Wolf of Wall Street.
Yes.
So in 2013, Steve was the inspiration for a feature film, which doesn't happen to every...
I was part of the feature film.
A big part of the film.
Yeah.
When they came to you, I'm assuming to request your permission to do that, was there a moment in which you were not into doing it, or were you all in from the beginning?
No, I didn't want. I didn't want that story to be told again. I was, I wasn't sure how they would portray me. I told them I wanted Ryan Gosling to play me in the film, and
He wasn't
available. But, it worked out okay. Once, it is what it is. It's an interesting story. And, I got involved with childhood friends. That's how I got in trouble. They raised money for my company. I was an idiot. And, it was a good movie.
It was.
Yeah, it wasn't bad.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I feel like oftentimes when women are being interviewed, they will often be asked about how they do a work-life balance and how do they balance family and work. So I want to make sure to ask you.
Sure.
How do you balance having a family?
Do they ask that to? They ask that to women.
Yes.
Yes.
And you have a family.
I do.
3 gorgeous kids.
Yeah.
How over the years, as your business grew and grew, so many things have happened to you, such a dynamic career, still going.
Yeah.
How do you figure out the time that is family and the time that is your job?
Yeah. So I'm divorced. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so now I'm like a single dad,
Right.
sort of kind of thing. And so I mean, being I'm trying to think about this question. Well, I wouldn't miss my daughter's first dance recital to sell a pair of shoes.
Right.
I wouldn't do that. But also, I think it's important to let your children know that you work hard, and the reason one works is to have a home and to have food and to have clothes. So I think that message is important to send to kids. So now, I think it's really an important message. Mm-hmm. I really do. But at the same time, you want to be there for your kids, and you don't. And also, I'm older now, and I've done well in business, and so I can afford to spend a little bit more time with them.
And so you're looking at a room of young creative people.
Yeah.
I'm sure that one of the questions that will be asked, so I'm just going to ask it for you guys, is what is the piece of advice that you would give to a young designer, a young marketer, a person who's starting out their career?
I guess, I hate sort of this cliche bit, but I think that you really need, in order to be super successful, you really need to love what you do. I would say, I was thinking about my answer to the other question. I really admire people that are good at what they do. It could be a fireman, it could be a plumber, it could be, a lineman, whatever. I don't care what it is. It really turns me on when I see that. I really like that. Mm-hmm. I think it's so great. Cab driver, like a cab driver, you get in a cab and they know the shortest routes, and they're like, I love that. I love that. I really do. I love that stuff. And I think honest work is a good thing, and I think I really do think you could be proud of the fact that you provide for people other than yourself. Mm-hmm. Okay? That's one thing. On the other hand, the greatest gift in life is to be able to love your work. That doesn't apply to everybody. Some people don't have that. A lot of people don't have that. But if you can do that, then you will be way ahead in the game.
So in the fashion industry, trends are sort of a dime a dozen these days. We used to have 2 seasons, then we had 4. Yeah. Now we have like infinity amount of seasons, and brands are launching new product almost bi-weekly. Given that cadence, which is so fast now, how do you stay motivated to still be excited about creating new products? Naturally, you're floating a giant business, so you're motivated by continuing to...
I'm very competitive.
All right.
I'm very competitive. I want to win all the time. And so I want the most people to buy our shoes. I want to see our shoes out there. I just went to Globe Shoes in town, which is a great, great store. And he doesn't have Steve Madden shoes. Are you kidding me? So I was very upset by that. So he will have them. I promise you all. You're going to see the shoes there in 30 days. I promise. And it's a nice store.
Yes.
It really is a nice store.
So any shoe store you walk into, you're like, why is Steve Madden not here?
100%. Why aren't they there? Yeah.
Thank you, guys. American icon Steve Madden.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.